Ah, hermanos, I'm glad you're here. Not because it's comfortable, but because the truth is about to sting. Listen closely. Nah. 8 years. 8 long, ugly, suffocating years of pure hate aimed straight at you. Side eyes, whispers, smirks, accusations that stuck like mud. People certain you were guilty of something they never bothered to understand. And the sickest part, you were innocent the whole damn time. 8 years of being misunderstood. 8 years of being painted as the villain in a story you never wrote. 8 years of carrying blame that didn't belong to you, while the real cowards slept peacefully at night. And nobody apologized. Nobody paused to ask, what if we're wrong? Nobody cared how heavy that silence felt when you walked into a room and the air changed. They just watched. They judged. They fed on the narrative because it made them feel safe. Because if you were the problem, then they didn't have to look in the mirror. You learned something most people never do. You learned what it feels like to be hated for a version of you that doesn't exist. You learned how lonely innocence can be when it's drowned out by loud lies. You learned that truth doesn't always win quickly. It just waits, and it waits patiently. Let's talk about those nights, the ones where you replayed every moment in your head, wondering if you should have defended yourself harder, spoken louder, screamed, but you didn't. Not because you were weak, because somewhere deep down, something darker and sharper was forming. You realized arguing with fools doesn't clear your name. You realized begging for fairness only entertains the unfair. You realized that proving innocence to people addicted to hate is a waste of blood and breath. So you went quiet, and they mistook your silence for guilt. That's when the real damage started. You stopped explaining. You stopped chasing approval. You stopped caring about being liked. And without knowing it, you stepped into a different league. See, hate is a strange fuel. Most people burn under it. You learned how to burn with it. Every insult became discipline. Every false accusation became focus. Every year they tried to break you. They accidentally carved you into something colder, smarter, untouchable. They thought they were punishing you. What they were really doing was stripping away weakness. 8 years taught you how fake smiles work, how loyalty evaporates under pressure, how quickly people turn when the crowd points in one direction. You saw it all. Friends who disappeared, voices that suddenly went quiet, people who didn't want to get involved. Translation? They were never with you to begin with. And here's the part they don't understand yet. You survived 8 years of hate without becoming bitter, without losing your mind, without turning into the monster they wanted you to be. That takes a rare kind of strength, because anyone can be good when they're praised. Anyone can stay calm when they're protected. But staying sane while being blamed for something you didn't do, that's elite-level resilience. That's villain origin energy. You started to see clearly. You stopped trusting words and started watching patterns. You stopped believing promises and started believing behavior. You stopped craving validation and started craving results. And slowly, quietly, you outgrew the room. The same people who laughed, the same ones who whispered, the same ones who were so sure you were the problem. They're still stuck in the same mental prison, still gossiping, still judging, still needing an enemy to feel important. While you're evolving. Here's the brutal truth most people can't handle. Being innocent doesn't protect you. Being honest doesn't save you. Being kind doesn't guarantee fairness. But endurance? Endurance changes everything. 8 years of hate forged something inside you that can't be shaken by opinions anymore. You've already survived the worst-case scenario. They hated you. They doubted you. They turned on you. And you're still standing. So what exactly are you afraid of now? You don't need revenge. You don't need closure. You don't need apologies from people too weak to admit they were wrong. Your existence is the receipt. One day, quietly, the truth will surface. It always does. And when it does, don't expect cheers. Expect awkward silence. Expect people pretending they always believed in you. That's when you smile, not because you won their approval, but because you no longer need it. You were innocent. They were loud. Time did the rest. And now you move differently. Calmer, sharper, untouchable. 8 years of hate didn't destroy you. It introduced the world to the version of you they're not ready for yet. And let me take you deeper, because the real story didn't end there. After those 8 years, something snapped into place inside you. Not a breakdown, a realization. You finally understood that innocence doesn't scream. It doesn't beg. It doesn't chase justice like a desperate addict. Innocence sharpens itself and waits. It lets time expose the cracks in lies while it grows stronger in the shadows. You stopped trying to clear your name. You started building your spine. You noticed how hate made people sloppy, how their stories changed depending on who was listening, how their confidence came from noise, not truth. And you became dangerous in silence. You learned to sit in rooms where everyone doubted you and still breathe calmly. You learned to look people in the eye while they projected their guilt onto you. You learned emotional control most people never touch in a lifetime. That's when the power shifted. Because the moment you stop needing to be understood, you become uncontrollable. They expected you to crack. They expected a meltdown, a confession, an apology for something you never did. What they got instead was discipline, patience, growth they couldn't track. You started upgrading quietly, mind first, body next, vision last. No announcements, no flexing, no explanations. And here's the part that eats them alive at night. You didn't just survive hate. You outgrew the people who gave it. Their lives stayed small. Same conversations, same fears, same excuses. While you were being forged, you learned how power actually works. Not the loud kind, not the fake confidence, the kind that doesn't need approval to move forward. You realized most people don't hate you because you're guilty. They hate you because your calm exposes their chaos. Your restraint exposes their lack of control. Your silence exposes how empty their accusations really are. You became a mirror they couldn't stand to look into. And that's when the tone started changing. Suddenly the whispers weren't so confident. Suddenly the jokes didn't land. Suddenly people started watching instead of talking. They felt it, the shift. They couldn't explain it, but they knew something was off. You weren't shrinking anymore. You weren't defending. You weren't reacting. You were moving like someone who already won internally. And that terrifies people more than anger ever could. Because anger is predictable, pain is exploitable. But composure after injustice, that's unsettling. That's when they start rewriting history. Oh, I never really believed that. I always thought you were misunderstood. You know how people talk. Funny how everyone finds their memory once the truth gets closer. But you don't confront them. You don't correct them. You let them sit in that discomfort because you already paid the price. 8 years of it. You earned this calm. You earned this clarity. You earned the version of yourself that doesn't flinch when questioned. And now you understand something most never will. Being innocent and hated teaches you more than being guilty and forgiven ever could. It teaches you discernment. It teaches you self-reliance. It teaches you how to stand alone without collapsing. So if anyone listening is still in that phase, still misunderstood, still blamed, still carrying hate they didn't earn, hear this clearly. This is not the end. This is the forge. Let them talk. Let them assume. Let them be wrong loudly. You're being shaped for something they wouldn't survive. And when the truth finally stands up on its own, you won't clap. You won't gloat. You won't even look back. Because the real victory, you didn't let their hate turn you into them. You walked through hell innocent and came out evolved. And here's the part nobody warned you about. After surviving that kind of hate for that long, normal life doesn't hit the same anymore. Small talk feels hollow, crowds feel fake, smiles feel rehearsed, because once you've been judged without trial, you start seeing the world for what it really is. You see how fast people choose sides without facts. You see how morality bends when convenience walks in. You see how good people disappear. The moment standing with you costs them comfort. 8 years didn't just test you, it reprogrammed you. You stopped expecting fairness from humans. You stopped confusing popularity with truth. You stopped mistaking noise for power. That's when solitude became your sanctuary. Not loneliness, solitude. The kind where you sharpen your mind while everyone else numbs theirs. The kind where you build standards so high, only discipline can reach them. The kind where you stop explaining yourself because your direction is no longer up for debate. You learn to trust yourself when no one else did. That's dangerous, because the moment a person becomes self-validated, the system loses control over them. They can't shame you anymore. They can't guilt you anymore. They can't threaten you with exclusion. You already lived outside the circle. You remember the moments they smiled to your face but poisoned your name behind your back. You remember the fake concern, the just asking questions, the carefully worded doubts designed to sound innocent while destroying reputations. And you remember how it felt when no one defended you. That silence carved steel into your spine. It taught you to stop expecting rescue. It taught you to become it. While others were busy performing goodness, you were studying human nature. While they chased validation, you were mastering emotional restraint. While they slept comfortably in lies, you stayed awake with truth pressing on your chest. And somehow, you didn't break. That alone separates you from most people. Because most can't survive being misunderstood for a week, let alone 8 years. They would have exploded, confessed to things they never did just to end the pressure, betrayed themselves for acceptance. You didn't. You endured, and endurance rewires a person. You stopped reacting emotionally and started responding strategically. You stopped wasting energy on proving innocence and started investing it into becoming undeniable. Quiet wins, private growth, unseen preparation. That's where the transformation happened. And here's the uncomfortable truth they'll never admit out loud. Your survival exposed their weakness. Because if you could endure that much injustice and still move forward with control, what does that say about them? That's why they stay uneasy around you. That's why the energy shifts when you enter a room. That's why conversations pause for half a second longer than normal. They feel the weight you carry. You've seen the worst side of people and didn't turn cruel. You've tasted betrayal and didn't become reckless. You've lived under judgment and didn't collapse. That kind of restraint feels threatening to those who run from accountability. So now, you move differently. You speak less, but when you do, it lands. You smile less, but when you do, it's real. You trust slowly, but when you do, it's intentional. You're no longer desperate to be seen as innocent. You're focused on being effective. And that's the final evolution. Because innocence doesn't need defense once power enters the room. Let them keep revising their stories. Let them pretend time erased what they did. Let them sleep on the lies that protected their comfort. You already paid the cost. 8 years of hate didn't bury you. It trained you to walk through fire without flinching. And now you're not looking for justice. You're building a life so solid that their past lies collapse under the weight of your presence alone. And then comes the phase nobody talks about, the quiet after the storm, where the damage finally shows its depth. Because surviving 8 years of hate doesn't just make you strong, it makes you selective. You stop letting people get close just because they're loud, charming, or familiar. You start reading pauses, tone shifts, inconsistencies. You can feel betrayal before it speaks. That's not paranoia. That's pattern recognition earned the hard way. You remember how easily they believed the lie, how quickly they adjusted their morals to fit the crowd, how comfortable they were watching you bleed socially while claiming neutrality. So now access to you is earned, not assumed. And that bothers people. They sense the wall. They feel the distance. They notice you don't overshare, don't vent, don't need them. They mistake your boundaries for arrogance. Let them. What they call cold is just discipline shaped by pain. Because you learned something brutal and permanent, most people don't want the truth. They want comfort. They want a villain they can point at, so they never have to question themselves. And for 8 years, you were convenient. You carried their projections, their insecurities, their unresolved guilt. You became the container for everything they refused to face. That kind of pressure either crushes a person or compresses them into something dangerous. You didn't come out loud. You didn't come out angry. You came out precise. You choose words carefully now. You choose battles rarely. You choose silence when noise would only feed fools. And here's where the Joker smile forms, slow and unsettling. Because the same people who doubted you now seek your presence. They ask for your opinion. They want your energy in the room. They don't even realize why. They just feel it. You operate with an internal authority that doesn't ask permission. You move with a calm that can't be rushed or rattled. You've already been through social death. So what threat do they really hold? None. That's freedom most people will never taste. They're still trapped managing impressions, still editing themselves to be liked, still terrified of exclusion. You already survived it. So you don't rush, you don't beg, you don't explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You let outcomes speak. And slowly, reality starts correcting itself. Not with apologies, not with dramatic confessions, with shifts. People hesitate before doubting you now. They double-check before repeating rumors. They soften their tone when addressing you. Because something about you feels immovable. They sense that you are no longer a character in their story. You are your own force. And here's the sharpest truth of all. Being innocent for 8 years while being treated as guilty taught you how fragile reputations are and how powerful self-respect is. They tried to take your name. They tried to bend your identity. They tried to rewrite you into something smaller. Instead, they stripped away your need for validation. They created someone who doesn't need to prove innocence to stand tall, Someone who doesn't fear judgment because they've already lived inside it. That's why your presence feels heavy now. Not threatening, not aggressive, just undeniable. You don't chase justice anymore. You let alignment do the work. You don't correct every lie. You let time embarrass them. You don't seek revenge. You seek precision. Because the real twist, they thought 8 years of hate would weaken you. What it actually did was teach you how to move through a broken world with your spine intact and your mind awake. And once a person reaches that level of clarity, they don't fall again. They rise quietly. They strike only when necessary. And they never forget who watched them bleed and called it entertainment. You didn't just survive the lie. You mastered the aftermath. And then comes the final transformation, the one that doesn't look dramatic from the outside, but permanently alters how you exist in the world. You stop trying to be understood at all. Not out of spite, out of clarity. You finally accept that most people don't listen to understand. They listen to confirm what they already believe. And once you see that, the urge to explain yourself dies naturally. You conserve energy now. You guard your time like it's oxygen. You don't bleed words into ears that were never open. That restraint, that's power refined. Because you've learned that dignity isn't loud, strength doesn't announce itself, and truth doesn't chase approval. 8 years of being falsely judged stripped you down to essentials. What matters? Who matters? What you will never tolerate again. You don't tolerate disrespect wrapped in jokes. You don't tolerate curiosity that feels like interrogation. You don't tolerate people who benefit from misunderstanding you. You walk away early now. And that shocks people. They're used to access, used to explanations, used to watching you absorb things quietly. Not anymore. You don't explode. You disengage. And that's when they realize something irreversible has happened. They no longer control the narrative in your head. You decide who you are now, not rumors, not assumptions, not the past. And here's the irony that cuts deepest. The same people who once watched you drown in accusations now crave your composure. They admire your calm. They comment on your growth. They say things like, "You've changed." Of course you have. Pain that lasts 8 years doesn't leave you the same. It leaves you sharper, cleaner, less available for nonsense. You don't hate them. You don't forgive them either. You simply outgrow them. And that's the punishment no one talks about. Being forgotten by someone you once had power over. Being irrelevant to someone you tried to break. Being unable to access the version of you that was once open, raw, and explainable. They lost that version forever. Now they get the controlled one, the measured one, the one who knows exactly how dark people can get and still chooses restraint. That restraint isn't kindness, it's mastery. You've mastered your reactions, your emotions, your impulses. You know when to speak and when silence will do more damage. You know when to confront and when absence will scream louder. And here's the final truth, the one that completes the arc. 8 years of hate didn't just prove you were innocent. It proved you were built for pressure most people would collapse under. It proved you could carry injustice without becoming unjust. It proved you could walk through distortion without losing your identity. That's rare. That's dangerous. That's why you no longer need validation, revenge, or closure. You became something worse for liars and manipulators. You became immune. Immune to gossip. Immune to false narratives. Immune to emotional manipulation. They can't move you anymore. And when someone can't be moved, they can't be controlled. So if anyone listening is still in the middle of it, still carrying blame they didn't earn, still being misunderstood in rooms that refused to hear them. Hold steady. This isn't breaking you, it's burning off everything that isn't essential. One day, without drama, without speeches, without explanations, you'll notice something terrifyingly calm inside yourself. You don't need them to believe you anymore. And that's the moment you win. Not loudly, not publicly, but permanently. 8 years of hate didn't steal your future. It carved you into someone the future can't ignore.